Hello and welcome back to the NBA DFS Slate Breakdown for Tuesday, March 12th. We're going to be breaking it down. We got 7 games to go over. Once again, injuries are everywhere, so we will be going through all of that. And before we do, come join us at LionStar. We got the promos right down there. ParlayPlay, Sleeper, Underdog, Chalkboard, all of them. If you are a new customer to those sites, use our link, use our promo code LionStar, and you get 1 free month of LionStar, as well as whatever bonus that they are giving you through signing up. Now, let's get into the slate. I think we got an interesting one here. The big news that just broke is Boston, which will be without Jaylen Brown, without Al Horford, without Kristaps Porzingis. Now, that change probably is not yet in our ownership, or I could say it definitely is not in our ownership. But we will talk through all of those situations, and we just can't rely so much on ownership as we normally do because of that. Now, let's get into it. So definitely 2 high point guards. Her high-owned point guards today will be Jalen Green, Fred VanVleet. Luke Kennard's going to get some ownership. The Memphis situation is just an absolute poop show right now. We really have no idea who's playing, who's not, but there is a very, very real possibility they only have 8 or 9 guys healthy. So we're going to really have to watch their injury report as it comes closer to game time. Unfortunately, they are a 5 o'clock start. Slate starts at 4:30, West Coast time, that is. So we may not know everything for Memphis until lock. So might have to guess some stuff, but Memphis in a very good spot versus Washington, could also be shorthanded. So there's definitely going to be some spots we are interested in targeting. Luke Kennard is one, Konkar is one, but it's really hard to know at this point just because we're not sure who actually is playing or who's starting, and that will be important for them. As far as Houston, no Alperen Sengun. Fred VanVleet and Jalen Green get a huge bump without Sengun. They just don't have somebody else that they can use like him, and how they do. So more emphasis falls onto the guards to distribute, to score points, to run the offense, all of that. So good reason why those guys are getting a good bump. And then also add on that it's a good matchup versus the Spurs. So they are very interesting. Then I got to go back to my guy, SGA, versus the Pacers. Huge total, huge pace-up spot. Absolutely interested in going with some SGA there. 241.5 total is the highest total on the slate. So absolutely interesting. I do got to throw out Tyrese Halliburton. He's 9.1K. He's been living, in the high 40s. But we know he has that 70-point ceiling. So while I'm not getting a ton of him right now, I think he is probably going a little lower owned than he should be. And probably even lower owned than he is now because Drew Holiday and Derek White are both going to be higher owned guys. James Harden, I got to throw him out because there's injuries concerns for the Clippers. I think Leonard and Paul George are both questionable, and it just raises Harden's floor and ceiling so much if one of those guys are out. Then got to bring up Boston guys, Derek White and Drew Holiday. There is no Jaylen Brown, no Kristaps Porzingis, more shot making, more shot attempts. More of the offense is going to have to roll through these guys, and both are interesting. White played 34 minutes in a blowout last night and still put up 40. So don't mind going to him. Very good matchup. Very good matchup for Drew Holiday as well. I think both guys are very, very interesting. White does get a little bit more of a usage bump or fantasy point per minute bump than Holiday, but his ownership is probably going to be higher as well. I think both guys are very interesting. Don't mind going to them. Now, into Point guards on DraftKings, Amon Thompson, Fred VanVleet, both very interesting. Keaton George, Amon Thompson. Look, there's no Cam Whitmore, so he likely is going to play a little extra few minutes than he normally would, and we know he can score fantasy points in bunches. 1.22 fantasy per minute coming off the bench. Absolutely intrigued with going to some Amen Thompson. So interested in there. He is probably going higher owned than he should be, but he is definitely intriguing. Fred VanVleet, Keaton George. George has been playing a ton of minutes. Definitely intrigued to go there. It is a tough matchup versus Boston, though. But at least without two of their better players, the game may stay a little closer than you would expect. Into the matchup tool on the very top, we got Drew Holiday, we got Luke Kennard, James Harden, SGA, all are coming in. On to shooting guard. Dillon Brooks, Jalen Green, and Luke Kennard are the three high owns. Dillon Brooks, his price is just so low on FanDuel, $4,500. And then he's getting a bump up because no Alperen Sengun, and it's kind of hard to get away from him. However, I would say the ceiling isn't there like it is on some of the Memphis guys that are right around the same price. So I may have to bump some of the Memphis guys' projections a little bit just to get them in, or, some other guys on this slate. But he is probably going a little too high owned, even though he does get that bump up without Sengun. It's going to come down to a shot making, and it's hard to rely on his shots really falling. Now, his floor is going to be higher without Sengun, but we need a ceiling to win, and those, are hard to count on a wing player that's not going to have the ball in his hands a ton. Pivot-wise, we talked about Harden, talked about White, so we will just move it on over to DK. High owned Dillon Brooks, Amen Thompson, and Pat Connaughton. Connaughton at 3,300 is super cheap. I think he's going to play his minutes here. There's no Chris Middleton again. Should be around 26, 27 minutes, and at that price, in a decent matchup, he could definitely get there. And matchup tool, we got Jalen Green, Derek White, Malik Beasley all popping up. I do think Malik Beasley is pretty interesting tonight. He's 4,400, has had a couple good games in a row. He's going to play a ton of minutes. So definitely intrigued in a good, in a decent matchup. Good matchup for shooting guard. Overall, 22nd is the Sacramento Kings versus shooting guard. So I am absolutely intrigued. He's cheap. He's going to play minutes. The ceiling is there. He can get you 10x if he gets it going, but he can easily get you 6, 7x, and that's a pretty interesting thing to me. Getting into small forward, we got Dillon Brooks, Corey Crispit, Denny Edvidia, and I'm going to throw in Kyle Kuzma there because he's still a little bit higher owned too. We talked about Brooks. Look, there's no center for Wizards. Now Holmes is going to be out as well. Crispert is going to play minutes. He played 39 last time. If he's getting 35 minutes at 4,900, he becomes pretty interesting. Denny is very interesting as well. And Kuzma's just been crushing out of lately. So 35.5 is what we have him projected at minimum minute-wise, but he played 38 and 40 the last two games. His minutes are super high. He's in a great spot versus Memphis. Absolutely intrigued by going to some Kuzma. Some pivots. You got to throw in Tatum there. Now, Tatum is 10K. His ownership is going to be much higher than what we have right now, but that ceiling is just giant without Porzingis and Brown. So definitely intrigued there, as I am intrigued with going Bilal Coulibaly. He put up 28 last game. He's only 4,700. Now, he could easily put you, give you only 15, but his ceiling is so high that I got to be intrigued with him in a good matchup versus the Grizzlies. And as we talk about, there's a lot of Memphis value tonight, and Concard is one of them's probably going to get minutes. Just not totally sure who's going to minutes at this point, so I put Concard there. LaRavia is very interesting, been crushing it lately. So definitely intrigued with him. His price has just gone up a little bit, as it should. Getting into small forward on DK, Crispert, Brooks, and LaRavia. LaRavia is still only 5,200 on DK. Absolutely have to consider him at this point. This guy is going to get close to 30 minutes. He's probably going to crush again. It's a great matchup versus the Wizards. So definitely intrigued with going to him. If he's not starting, which, he hasn't really been, except for this last game, we don't really know his minutes. But Grizzlies have just kind of been playing everybody like 28 minutes lately, or 24. So intrigued with him for sure. And moving on over to matchup tool, we got Lou Dort. Jalen Williams is not, or Jalen Brown is not there. It is likely going to be Sam Hauser, who Hauser is going to be interesting. He's going to be higher owned. He played well last night. He's probably starting tonight. People will be on him, but he is intriguing, and Brooks is showing up as well. So let's get over to the power forward spot. We got Santi Aldama. We got GG Jackson and Denny all coming in higher owned. Like I said, we're not really sure what's going on with Memphis at this point, but they're going to have a lot of guys that become intriguing. If more guys are out, they could be down to 8 or 9 guys, which means even in blowouts they play. However, they're against Washington. So great matchup and not likely to be a blowout. So this game just has a ton of fantasy interest. And 5,600 for LaRavia is definitely interesting as well. Pivot-wise, Tatum we talked about. The value is probably here to get to Giannis. So I think Giannis in a spot versus the Kings is very, very interesting. He's been playing well lately. There's still no Chris Middleton. Done fine versus Sacramento Kings in the past, but we know he's one of the rare guys that can get us 80 on a night. So those raw points are interesting, and we may need some Giannis. Getting over to DK, we got Corey Crispert, Kyle Kuzma, and GG Jackson, a.k.a. Gregory Jackson, and Santi Aldama. All the same stuff goes for DraftKings. I think all the guys are interesting. We're going to probably need to figure out which Memphis pieces break the slate, and I'm sure there will be at least one. Matchup tool-wise, Santi Aldama, Jason Tatum, OG Anunoby, and Giannis. OG Anunoby is still questionable. If he plays, he's been out for a while. He could be a little bit limited. However, it was an elbow. So there is chance that his cardio is still up and he's a full go. We do need to watch. He is a game time decision. Not totally sure if he is in or not, but it obviously changed the outlook of the Knicks big time if he's playing. Getting over to the center spot, we got Santi Aldama, Trey Jemison. Jemison at 3,800 is just so cheap. Now, we're not sure how many minutes he's going to play. If he starts, he plays 22 minutes. He becomes interesting. The only issue here is what kind of ceiling is there? We haven't seen much of a ceiling. 20 points is great, but when you're locking up your center spot for only a 20 burger, you're probably behind the 8 ball, even though he is so cheap. We really need him to be able to have a ceiling at the center spot to really want to play it. Centers just have such a ceiling. It is hard to play a guy that's only going to get us 21, 22 there. Price per dollar is going to be great, but just understand you're giving up a lot not going there, especially when there's guys like Luke Cornett. Cornett, when he has started, has got us that 30, has got us 40, and he can absolutely do it in this matchup versus the Jazz. So definitely intrigued with some Cornett. With that, I do also have to bring up Xavier Tillman, who is, new to this Boston Celtics team. Really have no idea who's going to play center tonight for the Celtics. It could be Cornett. It could be Tillman. they could both just split 24 minutes. So I'm absolutely intrigued with Tillman, intrigued with Cornette. I would say Cornette is the likely starter just because he's been in the system for a little longer, but, not totally sure here. And this is another spot we're going to have to watch to see what happens with this starting lineup because since Horford is out, it's probably going to be one of these two guys. Other pivot I like, Domantas Sabonis. Look, he's been crushing it lately, and now he gets a Bucks team that isn't great about stopping scoring to the center. They also let a lot of assists go, and that is two things that Domantas Sabonis is extremely good at. So I like me some Sabonis tonight in a game the Kings really, really need to try and win. So, now, moving over to the center spot on DK, we got Kyle Kuzma, Trey Jemison, and Walker Kessler coming. I do think Walker Kessler is pretty interesting. So he did start, only played 24 minutes, but the guy can put up fantasy points per minute extremely, extremely quick. So I am intrigued with him. If he happens to get 26 minutes instead of 24, he could break the slate versus the Celtics at only 4,900. So definitely intrigued to go there. And on to the matchup tool. Jemison, Porzingis, which Porzingis is going to either be Cornette or Tillman. They are in a great spot. And then Kyle Kuzma popping up. I do got to bring up Jock Landale too. He is in a good spot. He is likely the starter. I just do have concerns with how many minutes he's going to play. We only have him at 20.5, which that's not going to get it done. They do have Jabari Smith who can play some center as well. So, they don't have to give him a ton of minutes. If he is playing, he becomes pretty interesting. He can produce very well as far as fantasy points per minute, but minutes are just going to be so hard to figure out what he is going to get. So definitely something to consider. And also any projections in the industry with Landale are going to be really hard to trust because we don't know the minutes. We also don't know, his output with the starters. We know his output with the reserves, which is two different things. So that'll do it for us today, guys. Good luck. Let's win some money, and I'll see you guys next time. Please like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back tomorrow. Bye.